I'm sorry, honey. Oh,
Boiling down bear fat.
Brandon crack.
H2, yes.
Yeah, you cast the butter.
Really?
We're good. We can get back in order. Go to H2.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, as the board directed some weeks ago to remove a veteran service officer from the Department of Health and Social Services, created it as a standalone department. I've prepared a job description, including a salary increase that's attached to my letter to you, and I'm asking for the board to approve that, as well as authorize the recruitment. The direction was to pattern this department ahead after other board-appointed positions like fair manager and ag commissioner, and so that's what we've done. And I think the job description facilitates that. I am recommending that we leave, for budgetary purposes, we leave everything in the health and social service budgets throughout the end of this fiscal year, because they're budgeted there, and to facilitate that. I would be a little bit remiss if I didn't, I guess, just advise the board some of the challenges that the veteran service officer will have by not having the health and social service administrative staff to rely upon for what they've been providing. And it's just going to require that the VSO be more well-versed in budgeting, administration, personnel issues.
Well, and I think that's well and good. I mean, I think for probably 50 years, it got along just fine outside of that particular kind of a structure. And it's a matter of finding the right person to do it. But also they have, they're going to be still supervised to a degree by the administrative office, by your office. Not that they necessarily work directly for you, but in terms of just like the fair manager, in order for him to do anything, he has to stay within the guidelines of the purchasing policies, all the other policies, and working with the auditor's office, so they have to be well versed in what is expected of them. So they're not out there.
No, they're not. They're going to be providing technical support for them, but I think in terms of the filing of claims, for example, tracking time for reimbursement, having time to go out and seek other funding, those are functions that we're going to need to find somebody that's got the skills to do that, in addition to just being a VSO. And that's my only caveat. In my memo, I recommend that the board select somebody that has those skills as well.
I think we're advised of that. The only thing I would have, Mr. Chairman, if I could add, and I'm not sure how to fit it into the job description, but I think it's something that would be worthwhile to incorporate in the duties and responsibilities in terms, it's not so much the duties of what they would think they would have, but it would be a duty that they don't have. And clearly enunciate, and it's unique in relationship to this position, and I think this comes from 25 years of working with the building down there and the task force, and with the VSO, they're in the building as well. And, the last occupant was convinced, I think, some of the, you have different groups down there that, that like to have conflict with each other. And one group kind of convinced the last VSO that he was in charge of the building, and he is not in charge of the building. So I think maybe defining it that one of the expectations is they would be to assist and help the Department of Public Works in who is responsible for the building for how you would administer and use the building. In other words, given them a subordinate role because they are, one of our employees is down there, so they're there pretty much day in and out. So if there's things going on in the building that are inconsistent with the use and activities of the building, they obviously are going to be one of the first ones to see it and have the responsibility of reporting it to the Department of Public Works. And I don't know how you would word that, but I think it's important that we enunciate, because I think one of the things that's happened in recent years is I don't think that message has gotten through to the person doing it. And then when you get one of the little factions down there deciding that they want to fuss with the other factions, and they enlisted him to help out, I mean, that creates problems. And I became aware of that and had the opportunity to have the conversation with him. I says, sorry, but you're not in charge of this. And it should be clearly defined in their responsibilities. And I think that's, the only thing I see in here, if we could somehow figure out how to strengthen that, that would be great. I think the Public Works Department would appreciate it too.
I think so I think what you're suggesting is that we identify duties that are not included in the VSO description.
Yeah, but I think part of their duty should be to report activities in the building that are contrary to what the county policies are. And from time to time that happens.
Monitor and report.
Yeah, that should monitor and report, but does not have the authority to enforce. It's not their job to enforce it, but I think they're in a position to report activity that would be not conducive with the building.
It's inconsistent.
I mean, we have policies in place, and they've been formulated by the task force. They've been brought to this board. The board's adopted them at their request. I mean, so they have a set of rules that govern the use of the building. So it's not something that's ambiguous. It's pretty clearly delineated. And
If you'll allow me to read what I think we could add there. One of the essential duties would be to become familiar, monitor, and report to the Public Works Department activity that's inconsistent with county policy within the building.
yes, I think that something of that nature would be. I'd leave it to you to, if you decide to revise it. So I think that's true. I just think we just need to make sure that that's clearly expressed. So, and when we go through the hiring process and the interview and stuff, it gives a chance for the board to re-emphasize the importance of that person, that they're not being hired to run the building. They just have the privileges of having offices there.
Now, is there, taking this from Melody's department, is this revenue affected? Is it affected? How does that work?
Now feel free to jump in here too.
I was kind of looking at her while I was talking and looking at you.
The answer is, I think, yes, it probably is going to impact some of the cost recovery that we're able to get with the MAW funding. And part of it is, Mel has explained to me that even having supervision of the VSO, we've had trouble getting them and their staff to record time correctly, which is critical in recovering costs. Also, they've been using services of the HSS admin function for all the things about motor pool, probably other things where, so instead of either having a car for VSO or having to go to the motor pool to check out a car and go do something, they could use one of the fleet that HSS. So a few of those things, and Mel knows much better than I, but we're probably going to marginally increase the cost.
Okay, so the motor pool, is that going to be affected? I know, I see that there's vans for.
Well, they don't, the VSO doesn't have a car. Well, the vehicle you see is for the vets is actually for the VA.
Okay.
And we're,
Okay, so you don't have anything to do with that.
and
Okay.
then the VSO has been using HSS cars out of the motor pool, which is not a big deal, but now if they don't want to take their own vehicle and charge mileage, they'll have to make arrangements for motor pool.
Okay. Okay.
So that shouldn't be a big deal. The MAW for this year, they earned a little over $27,000. It could have been much more if we'd gotten all the time studies. But there's a percentage of that we're required to keep in case of an audit exception. and then of course for the work that we do to get it. But it should be right around $25,000 to go back. And my recommendation is that that be used to match the Veteran Peer Specialist grant instead of us having to chase the behavioral health funding. The MA is one thing. If they turn in the time studies, we'll collect the money. If they don't return the time studies, then you guys will have to figure that out. Behavioral health funding, though, if we're due for an audit from the MHSA and we can't produce the documents we need, we're in trouble. And so I would just assume not be on the hook for that money. It's $20,000. And, if they really get on top of the MA stuff, there's no reason they couldn't generate that more every year.
I think that's something you just have to emphasize with
The new
the
VSO.
person that is brought in that hopefully has the skills to respond if they're smart about their job, and hopefully they can comply with and become real partners working with your department and other departments.
Yeah, we'll continue to train the Veteran Peer Specialists because the whole
Now,
point of that was behavioral
veterans
health outreach.
The Veterans Peer Specialist, when it was applied for, was not designed to supplant what the VSO was doing, but was designed to augment that.
That's correct.
So my question, was that a behavioral health grant, or was that a Veterans Office grant?
Well, as you may recall, that is the grant that we applied for through CalVet. And it's Cal MHSA funding. So it's the state pot of MHSA funding. They gave a chunk to CalVet to grant out to offices to make that behavioral health outreach to veterans.
But that grant came to the Veteran Service Office, not to...
That's correct. It came to the Veteran Service Office. It was initially $60,000. They piddled around for 9 months and told us we could only have 40. The state did.
Yeah.
They told us we could only have 40 because we're too small to have a $60,000 grant, even though that was what was awarded to us.
We got more than LA County got.
And then in the end, they gave us 20. And so we had designed a program that we really needed 40,000 to make any impact with. And so we used our local MHSA funding to match that. But we have to have reports back, and we have not had a lot of success getting that. So,
From the VSO.
right.
Yeah. What happened was when Susan was the VSO, things were set up. And then she went to work for behavioral health. It was fine, but then when Todd came in, and then you had the group that came in, that came together there, they had a completely different idea as to what they were doing and not doing. So I think it was a question of continuity more than anything.
Timekeeping.
But I think that's what we have to crack that nut and find the right individual that has those basic skills to make sure it's administered properly. So I guess the question is, when it comes to the MHS grant, peer specialist, that expires on June 30th?
Actually, it expires October 31st, but we have to resubmit it, or it needs to be resubmitted before June. It's weird the way they do it. It's from November 1 to September 30th. It's weird the way they do it, but that's the cycle it's on, and there's no reason that the VSO couldn't expect to continue to receive the $20,000 every year from CalVet to CalVisa.
Right. And I think the value of that, Richard, is when we do the job announcement, we need to make sure we put in there the planning for and administering grants, as being, because they're going to be, it's not going to be something done for them. I wasn't sure whether that was something that came out of behavioral health or was something that was done like from Todd's end or Susan's end when they were in the VSO office. So.
Well, it was between when Susan and Barbara was here at the time. Both departments worked together on submitting that grant.
There's a partnership. And hopefully it can be a partnership in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I think whoever is in that is going to have the ability to build those partnership skills and have the ability to do the administrative tasks that are required to be applied. And these aren't monies, that are supplanting the general fund support. These are monies that are designed to enhance the service.
And that's been a great program. It's brought a lot of additional veterans into the program, which is what we need.
We increased overall, brought in an extra $1.4 million worth of benefits to people that this is in the past year, have been able to bring in and engage the Veterans Office and see that's the value of the office. We want to make sure to get those extra benefits if we can.
Good.
I I just want to say, I appreciate everything Mel has done to work with the program up to including this point here, and I know she'll be ready to get whatever she can do.
Well, we're going to continue to serve veterans in our other departments, just as we always have, even though they would have you believe no veteran talks to us. That's not exactly true.
Aaron?
I have one other thing, in minimum qualifications required, which is on the ability to, you have deal tactfully and courteously with the public and other county staff. Should that be, like veterans or clients or something, should that be inserted there as well? I mean, because they're gonna be dealing with people that, you know, may have some issues, you know, you don't wanna be very hard. It's on page 2.
I'm trying to do
Sure, one from the bottom.
deal tactfully.
Here's a fine.
We could add veterans, I consider them part of the public, or we could say public and
Yeah,
veterans.
it was just a thought, right?
That's fine.
I think since this is.
Highlights it.
Since this is a specialized program, I think singling them out and making them separate from the public as general would be, it just reinforces that.
And then, I don't know who this would fall, if it would fall into you, Richard, or Melody, but AB 171, that is, it's a bill in the state assembly right now that appropriates money from the general fund specifically to the Department of Veterans. And they're going from, like, it's 2.1 million now, and they're bumping it up to the permanent 5.6 million to be continuous guarantee
And I think that 2.1 million brings in about $26,000, I think, based on that last report.
It was probably the same Calvet augmentation
Yeah.
this last
That's
year.
what this is.
Yeah, but anyway, it's AB 171, and I think we need to get a letter of support sent out to that. I don't know if it would come from you or from Melody or,
I think who comes on helping Richard.
oh, I think so too, but anyway, somebody needs to write that up, and I got it here for you.
Okay. Thank you for
And then,
whatever information you have.
and then I don't know, on a personal note, I don't feel very comfortable with as far as taking this away out of, bringing it up to the board's responsibility to hire this. I mean, I think we're almost doing a disservice to the community and to this person, because I'm not a veteran, I don't think anybody up here is a veteran. I don't know about the services or needs, there's a lot of grant funding and everything out there. And I think if we keep it in-house, where we're working together, I think this is gonna be way better ahead. And I'm not in favor of the Board of Supervisors taking over the VSO. That's my personal opinion.
Did you vote in favor of the motion at the procedural question? Did you vote in favor of the motion at the, I think it was at Jensen Hall?
I don't think I said anything, I didn't.
No, did you vote in favor of the motion?
It wasn't a roll call vote.
No, I think it was just a kind of a suggestion from you.
You can vote yes or no, you can moan.
And the only the reason I ask is because
Well, we had a motion and a second and it passed.
my thinking was more along the lines of parliamentary procedure, in that someone who voted in favor of something may then thereafter, if I understand it right, vote or ask for reconsideration of the motion, but only those that voted in favor of it may do so, not those that opposed it.
Well, the perception was it was unanimous at the time because it wasn't in the
I
opposition.
think it was, and it was a big, long meeting, that was the state of Jefferson, everybody wanted to go home.
Is that a motion for reconsideration, Mr. Supervisor?
Yes, it is.
That would require a second, and it would proceed along
I
those
would move
lines.
for
If
reconsideration of taking the, appointing the authority from the Director of Health and Social Services to the Board of Supervisors, I would ask, for the VSO, I would ask that to be reconsidered.
You a second. Motion dies for lack of second. Okay, back where we are, is there a motion to,
I would move, Mr. Chairman, that we proceed with the process that the CAO has brought forward and that we make the changes that were recommended and with the suggested amendments to the job description to reflect, some more of the specific details of duties of what the should or shouldn't do.
second?
I'll second that.
You got a motion and second, any discussion? Yeah,
I would just like to add that, generally when we interview for the VSO, we would ask one or two people from the veterans organizations to help for the very same reason you pointed out, Mr. Albach, that we weren't veterans either.
Anything else? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Alba?
No.
Supervisor Hemphill?
Aye.
Supervisor Mount?
Aye.
Supervisor Crowe?
All right. Okay, let's move on to H3. Minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is H3. It's really a county clerk recorder item, but I'm sure it's going to get around to me. There are minutes that are being proposed for periods of time which are, well, a couple of dates in 2012 and an April date of 2014. I am not in a position to comment on why those dates are now coming forward. That's not for me to answer. But there is a question about whether or not, for the 2012 minutes, we don't, if I understand it right, have 3 on this board at this time that were present for those meetings. And so we're back to the question of, or the assumption being made, that you can't vote on minutes of a meeting that you weren't present for. I mentioned to this board some months ago that I had a question about the legal basis for that particular position, and I am more confirmed in my position now that that is in fact not the law. The law is such that you can pass upon minutes for which you were not present at, but aside from the law, I think this board has had policy on that issue in the past.
And we have policy precedents in our rules and procedures in terms of it's just kind of the expectation. So it's not state law that precludes it, it's basically the customs and practices of past practices of the, and it's kind of a best practice too. I think that's a general rule that most organizations, not only just government organizations, but even private organizations, that when minutes come up, if you're not, haven't attended, you basically abstain from voting. But at the same time, you have to conduct business, and Robert's Rules of Order, you get into the nuances of that. They specifically talk about the rule of necessity and the ability to conduct a business, and in our rules of procedure, we make reference to the Robert's Rules of Order as being the underlying guiding principles. And I think even Rosenberg's Rules of Order, which are kind of a more of a modern extenuation of Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order was designed for large assemblies, like thousands of people. Kind of tough to adapt to a 5-member board or even a 15-member board. And Rosenberg has done that with his rendition. But in both cases, they make it clear that the rule of necessity prevails. You have to conduct business, so you just can't paint yourself in the corner and then all of a sudden seize up, and that's what would happen. So in that setting, just like we do with the conflict of interest law, I think the basis that the FPPC uses when it comes to when you disqualify yourself from conflicts of interest. If all of a sudden we have 3 members of the board who have Williamson Act contracts like we had today, and Mr. Pyle excused himself from the room, and that left Tom and me, and we're kind of going like, well, can't conduct business. So what happens is they draw lots from those who are disqualified, and they are basically re-energized to come back in, and even though there is a defined reason for them not to vote, they have the responsibility to vote so business can be conducted. So that would be, I think, the hierarchy that you'd be following in terms of determining whether or not any of the other members of the board could vote. Actually, all 5 of us could vote if you wanted to know the truth under the law.
And interestingly, a review of the law seems to indicate that minutes don't even have to be passed upon by this board. It's incumbent on the clerk of the board to keep a minutes of the actions taken, but I can find nowhere where it says that you have to approve those minutes. And interestingly, in many boards across the state, they don't. The clerk keeps minutes, and that's it. I'm not creating this. I'm not conjuring this up or making this out of thin air.
If you're never approved, how can it be a legal document to go back on?
Not necessarily, no.
Well, what happens if you don't like what the clerk puts down? Well, yeah, the clerk
I'm just saying what I believe the law says.
If one here, June 9th, I'm the only one that was there.
My point is that this board subscribes to a process which is above and beyond what.
Bob, I came a few minutes later.
Oh, you got me this late. You're the one that appeared.
He was absent at the beginning of the meeting.
My point is that this board, as a customary practice, does pass upon the minutes, and I'm not suggesting that you need to change that. All I'm saying is that you provide a level of review which is beyond what the law is, and so that's all.
I probably remember from June 19th, I kind of boycotted the closed session. I didn't show up.
So there were only 2 of you that were present.
Yeah, I came at public session at 9:30. I wasn't there for the closed session.
So that's the short of it. In fact, I think I had asked the clerk, in anticipation of this issue coming to the fore, so to speak, to generate a CD of each of those meetings and to distribute that to you all in advance of today's board meeting. Yes, correct. So that if you were in a position to vote on those minutes, that you would have had an opportunity to listen to the meetings, educate yourself about what occurred during the course of that meeting, and then vote on the minutes as your conscience dictated. And so that's the purpose that was included.
Okay. Any discussion from the public? This is sensitive, of course.
Oh, dangerous listening to him.
We live in danger.
Yeah, you guys live on the edge. County Health started this in 2013 when we brought before the board, I think 15 or 16 minutes that had been not approved, never came before the board for review or approval. And these 2 were just forgotten about. We got most of them, but there were 2 that when Jack Hansen left, the issue was dropped, and now you're down to not having a quorum to approve it. The April 22nd is the same thing, but you have a quorum for that still. We're getting down to closing this gap. My concern with April 29th is that the clerk took it upon herself to post those minutes, and they've never appeared on any agenda.
You mean the 22nd?
29th.
Well, the 29th not on.
The 29th is there. It's been posted, but it's never been on any
Sorry,
agenda. Sometimes it helps to let me finish, and then you can yell at me.
Well, it just doesn't make sense so much of the time. It's hard to follow.
We're good, you guys. Continue on, Mrs.
Focus, Mr. Burns.
Yeah.
The 29th needs to come before the board at some time in the near future because it never has been on an agenda to be approved. The problem with the dangerous part of what Mr. Burns is suggesting is that if the 3 of you who did not were not present during the 2012, you run the risk of, and you never know when litigation is going to pop up, and you're going to be on record for approving something that may or may not have happened. You're putting your stamp on it. And that's the best reason for abstaining from voting on meetings that you never attended, because once you go on record as approving something that you did not witness or cannot attest to the accuracy, you're included in that. Your name is included with the approval of what it says in there. Even though it's false and it should have been corrected, your name is going to be on there. Past precedent of abstaining is a healthy thing to do, and I don't think any of you disagree with that. You need to have a quorum. On these 2 you don't. What happens to those, because I attend a lot more meetings than this body, what happens is that it goes in the record as unapproved because there isn't a quorum to say this is accurate. So it just, and there are plenty of boards in this county and other counties that have, if you go to their archives, they've never been approved, but they're on record there. They just have to be maintained as unapproved. It's sad that you didn't take County Health any more seriously when we presented all these to you. You did try over a 12-month period to